Just like the last time the Mets faced the Phillies, Francisco Lindor hit a clutch game-winning home run, and now the Mets have won 5 games in a row.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Another beautiful night at Citi Field, a packed crowd, so much buzz in the air, and your Mets continue to roll at home. They're now 5-0 on this homestand, and they are 10-1 on the season at Citi Field, and this win so much sweeter because the Phillies were the adversary coming into town for the first head-to-head matchup of the season, and it was a game that was pretty one-sided until the very, very end, where the Phillies made you a little bit scared in the ninth inning. But for the most part, the Mets were in complete control of this game. I'm going to talk about Tylor Megill more in the next segment, but he was excellent. 5 great innings to start. Reed Garrett helped him through the 6th, but a really, really solid start from Megill, who gave up 1 hit, walked 4, struck out 10 in 5 1/3 innings pitched, and just really did keep that Phillies lineup at bay. Meanwhile, the Mets jumped right out on Aaron Nola, and Francisco Lindor once again was the one to get the party started. A leadoff homer for his second straight game, and this was a tough pitch to hit. Aaron Nola threw him a couple of knuckle curves in a row trying to get him to strike out, and it seems like he must have measured it pretty good, but the pitch that Lindor hit out was a knuckle curve that could not have been dotted more perfectly, low and in. I mean, this pitch, if you're talking about hitting a corner of the strike zone, Nola did that. But Francisco Lindor read it immediately, knew what was coming, and crushed the baseball to get the Mets out to a 1-0 lead. Second inning, Jesse Winker hit a leadoff homer of his own, got into a 2-0 count, got a fastball over the heart of the plate in a hitter's count, and did not miss it. And the third inning, the game was almost broken wide open in a moment that was so magical until it proved to be some fool's gold, as Juan Soto almost had his first real signature moment as a New York Met. Tyrone Taylor got a leadoff single that inning. Francisco Lindor drew a walk, so that put 2 on, nobody out for Juan Soto, who fell behind the count 1-2, but gets a fastball up out of the zone, but he covered it and put on a unbelievably violent swing on that ball and crushed it down the right field line. You had Francisco Lindor doing the Carlton Fist, trying to wave it fair. You had Soto lean in, trying to see if that ball would go fair. It was ruled a fair ball, and Citi Field absolutely erupted, and they did not get that call right until replay review. So Soto got to round the bases as everyone in the ballpark is going nuts. It really did feel like this first banner moment, but then the whole question was, did that actually go out? And unfortunately, it just barely bent foul near the top of the foul pole, and Soto had to come back in the batter's box behind the count, ends up rolling one over. He gets out, and really, Aaron Nola showed you why he has been one of the most consistent starting pitchers in baseball. I mean, the guy can have blow-up starts, and I don't think he necessarily pitched great in this one because the Mets hit him hard for most of the game, but Nola just has a way of still making pitches and not being scared, even if he does get hit hard. He gets Soto to ground out. He strikes out Pete Alonso and Brendan Nimmo to get out of that inning, retires the side in the order in the 4th inning and the 5th inning. 6th inning, the Mets got something going as Pete Alonso and Brendan Nimmo each got hits once they already had 1 out in the inning. So you had 2 runners on, 1 out. Jesse Winker up. Winker clearly was seeing Nola well and ripped a line drive. It just happened to go right to Bryce Harper, who was able to catch it, turn, and tag Nimmo, who was trying to dive back to the base. And so that was the end of that threat. Again, Megill pitched great. Reed Garrett helped him through that 6th inning. Max Kranick came on in the 7th, had a 1-2-3 frame. Mets got some insurance runs in the bottom half of that 7th inning as Luisangel Acuna extended his hitting streak to 9 games. He has been outstanding lately. He's clearly hitting himself more and more into playing time, and it'll be interesting to see what the Mets do when Jeff McNeil comes back. We got some comments from Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns on the timeline for that and what the plan is, so I'll talk about those comments in the final segment. But with Acuna on, Brett Beatty came up. He drew a walk. Tyrone Taylor hits what could have been a double play. And this is really the winning play of the game that doesn't show up in the box score because Tyrone Taylor just busts it and is able to beat out the double play or to prevent the double play by beating it out. So they only get a forced out at second. That brings Francisco Lindor up with 2 outs. And Lindor, once again, comes through in the clutch. A incredible home run. This guy has just been on a tear lately. 4 home runs in his last 4 games, 3 in the last 2 games, first multi-home run game of the year. And anytime the Mets have needed Francisco Lindor, particularly at home, he is just feeding off the energy of Mets fans. And it's been incredible to watch. He hits a 3-run homer, very reminiscent to the grand slam that put the Mets in the NLCS last October. And here he is, just showing you that despite the fact that Pete Alonso is off to this outstanding start, despite the fact that Juan Soto is one of the best hitters in baseball who got the insane contract, this is Francisco Lindor's team. And Francisco Lindor is still the best player on this team. Is Pete Alonso the best hitter right now? Absolutely. Should Juan Soto become the best hitter by the end of the season? I still believe he will. But Francisco Lindor is the heartbeat of the New York Mets. He's the captain, and he continues to be clutch time after time after time. And you look at what he's done in April so far. He's hitting .325 with a .379 on base and a .571 slugging percentage, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, 16 runs scored, a .950 OPS. He's hit safely in 17 of 19 games this month, and he's homered, again, 4 times in the last 4 games. For Lindor, he started the year 0 for 11 in Houston. So he had 1 bad series. And mind you, this was when his wife was about to give birth any day, and she did. That's why he missed the 1 game in Miami. And since then, he has just been on this tear where it just seems like Lindor is right back to where he was last year when he was playing at an MVP level. He's doing it again. And yes, the defense has wavered at times, but we've also seen Francisco Lindor make sensational plays and be rock solid at the shortstop position still. So Lindor is still the Mets' best player, and that home run, he basically gets to have the moment that Juan Soto had taken away from him to put the Mets up with a 5-0 lead. And it would have been, it seemed to be, a game that was completely one-sided. But then Gary Cohen had to open his mouth about Max Kranick's whip, and Edwin Diaz looked shaky again. I'm going to talk about what happened in the final couple innings, and then I want to circle back to Tylor Megill and his outstanding start. We'll get to all that in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props from 3-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 bonus today. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I have to check. I think we are either at our goal or almost at our goal. We're like a handful of subscribers away from 13,000. So I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Now let's talk about the pitching in this game. Tylor Megill was great. We'll get to that in a minute. But the end of this game is what I want to focus on first, because you have Reed Garrett, who gets 2 big outs in the 6th inning. You have Kranick, who's great through the 7th, and he's got the first 2 outs of the 8th. And Gary Cohen has to point out in the broadcast that he has a whip on the season of 0.40. Now, whip is walks and hits over innings pitched. So what that basically means is a whip of 0.40 means that he was giving up less than a base runner for every 2 innings that he pitched. That is how good Max Kranick has been. Well, they point out the whip on the broadcast, gives up a base hit. Now he gets out of that 8th inning. But if you look at what he's done this year, first 15 innings he had pitched, he'd allowed only 6 hits. Gare opens his mouth, and Max Kranick gives up 4 hits to the next 5 batters. Unbelievable. The hit to Kyle Schwarber before he gets out of the 8th. Then in the 9th inning, a leadoff double and 2 base hits. And all of a sudden, Edwin Diaz has come into the game with the Mets winning by a score of 5-1. And Diaz gets a fly out. That was well struck. Then Bryson Stott falls behind the count 0-2 because Diaz just threw 2 fastballs pretty much down the middle right by him. So what is the third pitch they're going to go to? Is it a slider to change it up? Is it a fastball that's up and out of the zone maybe? I can't tell from how Luis Torrens is setting up. He doesn't put an extremely high target. He was set up sort of middle, a little bit up. So maybe they want him to throw the exact same pitch that he had, which again was 2 fastballs basically down the pipe. Instead, that fastball bleeds in on Stott, and he puts a great swing on it, hits a 3-run homer, and all of a sudden it's 5-4. Mets only leading by 1 run against the Phillies. Luckily, after that home run, Trey Turner and Bryce Harper put together a pair of pretty brutal at-bats because I'll be honest, I don't think Edwin Diaz pitched well at any point of this inning, really. Turner gets a call because he did locate, Diaz did, a fastball up in the zone. That should have been a strike, so that was one that should have gone his way. Instead, Trey Turner is sitting 1-0. Then Diaz threw a get-me-over slider that was right down the pipe. Turner takes it. All right, it's a 1-1 count. Then he chases one. That was a good slider for Edwin Diaz to get ahead to 1-2 count. He then throws a fastball, again, right down the middle, right down Broadway. And yes, he blew it by him. Give Edwin credit for that. But if Trey Turner was locked in and he gets a fastball, I mean, you can't tell me that Luis Torrens is calling for a fastball center cut. I mean, why? Why? There had to be a different location that he's missing. I digress. You get a strikeout, fine. Then Bryce Harper comes up, and from the first pitch that Edwin Diaz threw, I knew that Harper stood no chance because it was a slider and he swung through it and it looked ugly. And it just, looked pretty apparent that Edwin's going to keep throwing sliders and Harper was not going to be able to square one up, and he didn't. But the pitch that he struck out on, I kid you not, starts at Bryce Harper's back knee. I can't believe he swung at it. It starts at his back knee and it hits the ground before it gets to home plate. That's not a good pitch. That's not what Edwin Diaz is trying to do. So, yes, I'm not in a position right now where I'm saying the Mets have an Edwin Diaz problem for sure, because we've seen Edwin Diaz can be erratic. We've seen he can go through stretches where it's great and other stretches where it's not great. And the thing is, the stuff is so good that even when he throws a fastball right down the middle, his delivery and how hard it comes out of his arm, it's still a tough pitch to hit. And that's why Trey Turner doesn't get to it. I mean, it's not like I'm saying he has bad stuff, but his command is not there right now. And so that's going to be something that we're going to have to, monitor with these situations where I don't feel like the Mets are going to hand the ball to Edwin Diaz, and you're going to know until he starts off the first couple batters if he's locked in or not, and if it's going to be a game that he's going to be able to hold on to. So far, if I'm not mistaken, he hasn't blown any specific save situations, but it's not the Edwin Diaz that we've seen where it's lights out. It's really not 2022 Edwin. That's not even what Edwin looked like during his best stretches last year, but he had bad stretches like this and came out of it. He's going to continue to have the closer role. I just think it's something that we have to keep our eyes on. And I don't think that there's anything to be concerned with Max Kranick. Ultimately, as much as I joked about the broadcaster jinx, I really just think they pushed him a little bit too far. And I understand why. If Kranick was able in a 5-0 game to pound the strike zone like he does and get those last 3 outs, it would have been a huge boost to this bullpen to give Edwin Diaz another day, to not have to go to a Ryan Stanek or an AJ Minter instead in that 9th inning, even a Jose Budo or Danny Young. I mean, I don't know if those guys were available to throw the day before, but regardless, I know why Mendoza tried it, because Kranick has the ability to give you 3 innings, but I think he's probably best used in 2-inning spurts, and maybe that's a lesson they learned through this one. Luckily, it didn't cost them a game. The Mets still won it, and the bullpen's still in pretty good shape, as we'll talk about more in the next segment for the rest of this series. Now, let's circle all the way back to the beginning of this game with Tylor Megill, because he was outstanding, and it's starting to look like this guy is a legit middle of the rotation arm, at least, where I feel pretty confident that he's not going to lose his rotation spot. I don't know what the Mets do when they get Montas and Manaea back, who ends up falling out of this rotation. Everyone's throwing the ball pretty well, so it's hard to figure out exactly what they'll do. Obviously, they'll go to a 6-man rotation, so that does leave room for one guy. I think it's going to be hard for Paul Blackburn to hold on to a rotation spot if he does get one, but then again, we haven't seen him pitch in a game yet. But looking at the Mets starters this year, who has looked the best? Kodai Senga has looked awesome. Clay Holmes is getting better and better with each start. Tylor Megill and David Peterson both have looked great, and even Canning's looked good. So this rotation has been way better than advertised, and Megill at times has as good a stuff as anyone on this staff, and this game was a perfect example of it. 10 strikeouts and dominated this Phillies lineup. First time through the lineup, he retired 8 of the 9 batters, issued 1 walk, was the only exception. He struck out 5. He struck out the side in the second inning. He was carving. Third inning, after getting the first 2 guys out, Bryson Stott got the Phillies' lone hit against Megill, gets a base hit. Then he walks Trey Turner and Bryce Harper to load the bases. Has to go up against the hottest hitter in the Phillies lineup right now, Kyle Schwarber. Dots a first pitch fastball on the outside corner. Then just goes to the changeup. Throws 3 changeups, gets Schwarber to swing through 2 of them, picks up a massive strikeout to get out of that bases loaded jam. 4th inning, 1-2-3 frame. 5th inning, hits the leadoff man, then strikes out the next 3 batters. 8 of his 10 strikeouts came on fastballs that were on the black. And I think that's what is, there's 2 things to me right now with Tylor Megill that we're seeing. One, fastball command. That's first and foremost. He's always had a good fastball. When he locates his fastball like this, he's really tough to hit. The other thing is finding an arsenal finally. And this is not a knock on him. This is a guy that I've talked about it before. He came up, he was a 3-pitch pitcher. It was fastball, changeup, slider, and he still hadn't even figured out those other 2 pitches completely yet. Then he goes and he evolves and he becomes this guy that's a throw the kitchen sink at you. Last year was 8 different pitches, or even 9. I mean, he was just throwing everything. I think it actually was 8. And I told you guys who were listening to the show in spring training, the one concern I had about Tylor Megill is if you have 8 pitches, do you have 4 or 5? And what I meant by that then was, if you're throwing so many different offerings, have you figured out what your bread and butter is, the pitches you can go to in any count, throw them for strikes or throw them out of the zone and just outside the zone to get chased? Do you have weapons that you can trust, or are you just always trying to figure out which 2 pitches are going to complement your fastball that game? Because that's really hard to repeat. Well, Tylor Megill has figured out his arsenal. He has been a 5-pitch guy all year. He's yet to throw his cutter, which got hit very hard last year. He's yet to throw the split finger, which he sort of fell in love with at times last year and actually did have good results, but he hasn't been throwing it because I think he favors his changeup, and rightfully so. His changeup has been very good, and he's abandoned the sweeper. So he's been 4-seam, sinker, slider, curveball, changeup, and the sinker, or the 2-seam, whatever you want to call it, has been a great evolution for him, something we saw him pick up at the end of last year, and it really did bring some success because here's a guy that's a fastball pitcher. So give him another fastball he can throw. And that's what the 2-seam has done for him, because now that he has this pitch he can go to where, he can, now he can work that fastball when you got, right-handed batter. He can work that fastball on the outside corner. He can now work the 2-seam in on those guys. That's a really good pitch. And it's just, it gives him a pitch that breaks away from the lefties. It's just a really, really plus offering to pair with the 4-seamer that doesn't allow them to key on the 4-seamer as much because he's got a fastball that's going to move in a different way. And that allows him to miss barrels. And it's just a really good secondary pitch for him along with his slider. So it's really now kind of a 3-pitch mix. It's four-seam, sinker, slider. Those are the primary three offerings. And then he's got the taste-breaking curve and changeup where it's sort of matchup specific. Kyle Schwarber, a guy who is as professional of a hitter in baseball, who might be sitting there looking for the four-seam, the sinker, the slider. He goes to the changeup against him and gets a huge strikeout. He got a strikeout on a curveball as well. So it's that ability to lean on a couple pitches that you can throw in any count and feel confident that you can throw them for a strike, and then have that change of pace and really change of velocity, right? The change up in the curveball. That's where you get, you have guys sort of sped up on the four seam, on the sinker. Even the slider comes in a little bit harder. Now you change it up and you go with a off-speed changeup or that curveball that slows guys down, and you can get some whiff. He got incredible whiff throughout this game on everything but his four seam because he was leaning on the four seam. But he threw, again, 17 sinkers. He got 4 swings on them, 3 whiffs. He threw 13 sliders, got 4 swings on them, 3 whiffs. Threw 8 changeups, got 4 swings on it, 3 whiffs. 3 swings on his curveball, 2 whiffs. So incredible swing and miss across the board. And if you're locating that fastball on the black, on the corners, up in the zone, down, now you're just so tough for these batters to hit. And that's where we're seeing the best version of Tylor Megill I think we have ever seen. Yes, he had an incredible April before in 2022, but it didn't look like this. It didn't. This is a different level that Megill has reached. And it has me feeling like he's not going to give up a rotation spot this year. I think, barring health, I feel as confident about him sticking this rotation as I feel about David Peterson and Kodai Senga. Clay Holmes, I'd say so, but it's just a matter of how does he hold up, doing a starter's workload for the first time. And then, we'll see if Cannon can keep things going. Had a great start last time. He's going to be on the mound on Tuesday night, so we'll talk about him in a second here. But the top 4 in this rotation, to me, feels pretty locked in, and eventually that could be the case where it's Senga, Peterson, Megill, Holmes, and then you eventually get Minaya and Montas back. So we'll see how that evolves throughout the season. But I'm going to give you some updates on injured players that we learned about from Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns, your Jeff McNeil, Francisco Alvarez update, what their plan is with Jose Siri, what's the timetable for his return. A lot of news to discuss in the next segment. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure to become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service. We get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways, and you get the live graphics sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. So first and foremost, your daily update on Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez. I made the case for Jeff McNeil to be a big part of this series against the Phillies after his 4-for-4 game on Sunday. The Mets chose otherwise. They want to see both McNeil and Alvarez get a little bit more time in the minor leagues to get some more at-bats under their belt. Probably want to see them face AAA pitching first. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to head to Syracuse. They'll be in the lineup on Tuesday. McNeil would be at second. Alvarez will be behind the dish. Then on Wednesday, Syracuse will be playing a doubleheader, so 7-inning games. Those guys will each play one of those games. McNeil will be in center field. So that is an interesting note. And then Carlos Mendoza said the Mets will have a decision to make, which to me says they'll probably be joining the Mets in D.C. for the brief road trip. It's just one series in Washington before they come back home. But you never know. If those games don't go well, if they feel like these guys still need more at-bats, they might keep them down and have them play out the entire week in Syracuse. So they're going to wait and see what it looks like over the next couple games, see how they're feeling. And again, earliest possible return at this point would be on Friday night in DC, a 4-game series that, again, is a weird one where it starts on Friday, ends on Monday before the Mets come home to face off against the Diamondbacks. Now, what will be the playing time or the split for Jeff McNeil on where he's going to get his at-bats once he does come back? David Stearns talked about the center field position when he met with the media prior to the game. And for one, he gave us a timeline on Jose Siri, which we haven't had yet. So the expectation for Jose Siri is he could be back in 8 to 10 weeks from the point of injury, which was April 12th. So the earliest return would be June 7th. That would be 8 weeks. 10 weeks would put him at June 21st. So it actually does seem like they will get him back before the All-Star break. Question is, what does the Mets roster look like when you get to that point? How well has Tyrone Taylor played? Is Luisangel Acuna getting time in center field, or is Jeff McNeil getting time in center field? And who will go down when you get there? But when it comes to the center field rotation until Siri comes back, David Stearns basically said that Tyrone Taylor is going to get a lot of run there, but they feel confident or comfortable playing Nimmo out there, Jeff McNeil out there, as well as Luisangel Acuna. The fact that McNeil is getting another game in center field at Syracuse does lead me to think that the Mets are viewing Luisangel Acuna and the 9-game hitting streak and the defense that he's playing at second base. And they might feel, even though they're getting him ready to potentially play center field, that the boost that he brings to the infield might be more valuable than his speed in center. And so we very well could see Jeff McNeil getting real time in center field. I don't know if that is outside their own possibility here. It does leave you with a slower outfield, but at the same time, Jeff McNeil's a great outfielder. He has been outstanding in both corners for an infielder playing in left and right. At times, I feel like he's better in the outfield. I think if you had to put Jeff McNeil in one position for the entire season and see where he would rack up the best defensive metrics, I think if you put him in left field, he would be an outstanding everyday defensive left fielder. Now, you have Brandon Nimmo doing that, and I don't think the Mets are going to give up on Nimmo anytime soon, despite his early season struggles, but they might eat into his playing time a little bit. That I could see. Where if Jeff McNeil's hitting, Nimmo might get a day a week where he's not in the lineup if there's a bad matchup. So it's going to be a real timeshare across the board where a lot of guys are going to play a lot of different places. And we don't really know what the picture is going to look like until the Mets get everybody on the roster and they start to make decisions. I think because of the potential push to start a McNeil in center, to put Acuna in center, to on occasion, maybe you start Winker in left, you might DH Vientos and have Beatty play third or whatever it is, and slide Nimmo into center field because of all the different things the Mets can do with this roster. I can't imagine Jose Azocar is going to be part of this mix long. I really do think that when McNeil comes back, Beatty is going to stay for now. He didn't mention David Stearns, Jose Azocar, when he talked about the center field play. Azocar's name didn't get brought up at all. So I really think they're just going to stick with these guys because I think they view their position player group as being as strong as possible with Beatty and Acuna on this roster just because they're better than the alternatives. Acuna's earned it. So I should just set Acuna aside. There was another question that he was asked about if it's better for a player to develop in the minors and play every day or to play in a part-time role in the big leagues. He said it depends on the player. And I think with Acuna, if you look at what he did in AAA last year, here's what I was against from the beginning. If you go back and you follow my coverage of Acuna from the offseason all the way through, and particularly once we got into the season, the thing that I was against was Acuna being part of this roster and being on the bench. So when Jeff McNeil comes back, whether that's McNeil in center or Acuna in center, you got to find a way to keep Acuna in the lineup one way or the other. Does it mean you have to play him every single day? No. But you should start Acuna 4 times a week. He should start twice in every series is where I'm at right now. Now, if he slows down, if he looks like he's getting exposed a bit, pitchers are figuring him out, fine. But he's hanging in there. He's got a 9-game hitting streak. Right now, to me, it's a minimum of 2 games every series that he should be in there. Now, Jeff McNeil might be the same thing at first. And Beatty might be a guy that plays once a series. But between Nimmo getting a day, maybe you don't start a Winker or a Marte, you do something different with DH. Tyrone Taylor probably starts 2 games a series in the beginning too, but you eventually will find the pieces that work and you'll get to your best 9. And then if the Mets don't have any injuries for a while, they can mix and match these players all the way up until Jose Siri returns. But that's looking far out in the future. That's 2 months away for now, for this upcoming series, the team's going to stay as it is. McNeil and Alvarez could come back once they get to DC. And when they do, I imagine that Azocar goes down and you see Mendoza really leaning into mixing and matching, where the only guys that I think are guaranteed to play every single day are the top 3 guys in your lineup. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso. And then Nimmo's going to start, at least 5 out of every 6 games. I don't think that he's going to be stripped of everyday player status anytime soon. I could envision it like him getting a day here and there a little bit more once you get McNeil back, if you want to slide him into left field for a given matchup. And then Mark Vientos, I'd say, is right there with Nimmo, where when he's back, and it does seem like he should be good to go for game 2 of this series because he was available off the bench on Monday night. Vientos, if he starts hitting, he should be another guy that will be in there nearly every day. But between center field, second base, and DH and getting creative, you can find enough time for all these guys. But one thing for me that's pretty clear, Acuna's got to find his way in the lineup, and I'm going to be very curious to see, as they try to get Acuna and McNeil in there at the same time, who will be in center field. And I don't know, it might be McNeil. We'll see. One other injury update that we got from David Stern's presser was that Frankie Montas is on pace to return late May, early June. So expect him back likely before Sean Manaea, I would say. Both of those guys that hopefully could come back in June. And you just got to see what the rotation looks like when you get there. But June is still a long ways away, even though it's technically like 6 weeks out. A lot can happen during 6 weeks of a baseball season. Now, let's talk about game 2 of this series against the Phillies. It's Griffin Canning going up against Christopher Sanchez. Coming into the series, I gave you all 2 keys to the Mets winning against the Phillies. The first key was surviving the early innings with your starting pitcher, because the Phillies have a really good lineup. The Mets have a great bullpen. So getting through the first 5 innings with a lead and handing off to the bullpen was one of the big keys I had for the Mets to be able to win these games. What did we see on Monday night? Tylor Megill shut down the Phillies. Reed Garrett helped him get through that 6th inning, and the Mets had a 2-0 lead. And for a while, it looked like they might win that game 2-0. But eventually, they got the 3 extra runs, and they needed all of them, as essentially the Mets and Phillies traded off 3-run homers late off of the bullpens. Now, my other key for the Mets winning this series was working the starting pitchers. And Aaron Nola was able to pitch into the 7th inning, which was impressive. But the Mets worked him. They did work him. And they got into that bullpen, and what happened? 2 batters later, Lindor's hitting a 3-run homer. So that's another big key here. And you have guys going the next two days with Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler that can absolutely pitch deep, deep, deep into games. I mean, these are guys that can go 7-8 on you if they are rolling. So being patient but not passive in the box is going to be key against the next 2 starting pitchers. This lineup is going to have their work cut out for them because these are really good arms. Christopher Sanchez this year has a 2.96 ERA, gave up 4 of his 8 earned runs against the Dodgers. The other 3 starts, he allowed 4 earned runs in 18 2/3 innings pitched. So this is a really good left-handed starter. Does seem like Vientos should be good to go. So imagine Vientos is back there at third base. Brett Beatty to the bench. Winker had a great game, but I don't think they're going to start him left on left yet. So you'd imagine Starling Marte is going to get out there as the DH, because the only other alternative would be if the Mets wanted to have Jose Azocar get a start and slide Taylor into left or Azocar into left, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I imagine you're going to see Vientos at third, Marte at DH, everything else the same, Nimmo in there left, Soto in right, Taylor in center, Lindor, Acuna, Alonso rounding out the infield with Vientos, and Torrens probably behind the dish, and I'd imagine Hayden Sanger will catch the final game of the series, the day game after the night game. Now, you look at the Mets starting pitcher, Griffin Canning. He's coming off his best start of the year. 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts. How is he going to fare going up against this Phillies lineup that can be very dangerous? To me, it's 5 and die for Griffin Canning on this start. If he gets you through 5 innings and he hasn't gotten hit hard, I would probably turn it over to the bullpen. Granted, we'll see how the game goes. Canning, if he looks as good as he did last time, maybe he can go through 6, but once he gets over that 75 pitch mark, I'd be trying to get my ducks in a row in the bullpen to turn it over to that pen, especially if you have a lead and it's a narrow lead. Now, Huascar Brazaban is probably the first man out of the bullpen. Granted, you could always see Reed Garrett do what he did in this past game. Let's say Canning has gotten through 5 and they try him out in the 6th and it gives up a leadoff double. Then maybe you go to Reed Garrett to try to bail you out of that jam. But Huascar Brazaban has not pitched in 3 days, so he's well rested. He should have the ability to give you 2 innings and hopefully shorten the game a little bit so that you might not need to use all of your high leverage guys with the day game after the night game. Edwin Diaz, if it's another safe situation, I'm sure they will not hesitate to go to him. AJ Minter's gotten 2 days rest, so I imagine he gets in there. Ryan Stanek working on 1 day rest. Ideally, if you are going to pitch Diaz, you avoid pitching Stanek, so you keep Stanek in the holster for a safe situation on Wednesday. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to win this game because you got Wheeler going on Wednesday. So you want to try to win this series early if you can, because you know that Zach Wheeler pitching in front of a packed crowd at Citi Field, he's going to get up for this start, and he's going to be very, very tough. So best to do your work early here. Try to make this a 6-game winning streak, win the series quickly, and then the Wednesday becomes a house money game for the Mets. So that's where they're at with this one. A bullpen that is fairly rested. Expect Braziban to play a big role in this game. Hopefully Canning can put together a nice start, and the Mets can work Christopher Sanchez and get him out of the game early, because if they can get into that Phillies bullpen, as we saw in the game tonight, you can put up some big runs late in the game, whether it's close and you can take a lead back, or whether you can just provide some needed insurance and maybe push the lead to a point where you don't have to go to a Diaz, a Stanek, and the Mets ideally can close this game out with a guy like a Danny Young, because they've put up a bunch of runs. But that is wishful thinking. We'll see how things go throughout this game and throughout the rest of this series. I'll be with you the whole way through with another show. Tomorrow I'll break down whatever we see here. I'll talk about whatever Alvarez and McNeil do in Syracuse, and we will see where this series goes. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Check out Locked On MLB Game Time. This is our new show that's going to take you around the league and give you all of the latest when it comes to Major League Baseball, with updates from all 30 of our hosts covering all these teams. Check out Locked On MLB Game Time on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts on the Locked On MLB feed.